AI, which has huge, enormous potential, and I spoke to Erasmo's son. Erasmo is a dear high school friend, and his son is in AI, which is way above my pay grade. But notwithstanding the enormous potential that AI offers to life and Canada, AI won't run a country. And that was consistent right across the board. And I said to myself many times, well, what can I do modestly in a small corner of the world to try to improve that? So we've invested mightily in the WTO. It's not moving very fast, but I'm hoping it's not going to go away. And when normalcy, if it ever returns, and again, I hope it returns, I think the multilateral trade system will still be there. And today, because of Donald Trump, they are no longer the locomotive. They are the caboose. And what the caboose is doing is holding back the WTO. But I wanted to write something that was based on your experience, which is memoirs, but to make it a how-to practical guideline for how they may enter public life. Spending hours in cabinet dealing with incredible issues surrounded by some incredible people, there's a huge amount of satisfaction. So never let the negatives dictate the tale. Now, is the WTO and the multilateral system dead? I predict that it's not. Yeah, but Mom, other than that, it's a wonderful profession. My father said, be a dentist. A dentist? I said, why a dentist? Oh, they have a nice shirt and tie, they have the white thing over, they make a good dollar. I said, yeah, but Dad, it's painful for everybody who comes to the dentist to get their teeth pulled. I couldn't do that, so. And he made the right decision by inviting the Indian Prime Minister to the G7. He took some hell for it. He only cares about himself and America. It's not just America first, because we do Canadian first too. For me, Donald Trump is about America only. He doesn't give a damn about the welfare, probably of most Americans for that matter, and many other countries. They loved working for him.
Sure.
So it made for a good collaboration. And Jean was absolutely correct, because after having served in cabinet, if you don't work well with bureaucrats, or if you slight them, or if you disrespect them, they'll tie you up in knots.
ਸਰਜੀਓ ਮਾਰਕੀ ਬੜਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੈ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਮੇਰੀ ਸਰਜੀਓ ਮਾਰਕੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਣ ਪਛਾਣ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਵੀ 37 ਵਰ੍ਹਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੈ। 1985 ਨਾਲ 40 ਵਰ੍ਹਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਜੀ। 1985 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਸੀ। ਮੈਂ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਹਲਕੇ ਯਾਰਕ ਵੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸਾਂ। ਇਹ ਸਰਜੀਓ ਮਾਰਕੀ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਰੀਅਰ ਸੀ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ, ਸਿਟੀ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ, ਉਦੋਂ ਨਾਰਥ ਯਾਰਕ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਜੀ, ਮੈਟਰੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਪੂਰਾ, ਉਦੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨੇ 28 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ 1984 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਕ੍ਰਿਟਿਕ ਬਣਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਅਤੇ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦਾ।
At 26. I then entered Parliament at 28. I don't say that to be impressive. I say that, frankly, if I can do it, today's youngsters can do it as well. And that reminds me of another story. My old English teacher, Mrs. Smith, who used to tell me, Marchi, you don't read enough. You got to read more books. If you don't read, you're going nowhere. And I said, thank you, Mrs. Smith. I don't know if she's still alive or not, but I hope she's proud that I actually maybe read a couple of books, but I actually wrote one. But anyway, what I wanted to get at is, as soon as I was elected, member of parliament in 1984, one of my first calls was Mrs. Smith and said, Sergio, congratulations. I'd like to invite you to speak to our entire student assembly at St. Jude School. And I said, Mrs. Smith, I'd love to. It'd be an honor. So that was actually my first public speech in my riding in 1984. And she introduced me. And it went something like this. Boys and girls, today, this morning is a special day because we have a special guest. And our special guest is Sergio Marchi. And he's special because he went to St. Jude School. And I taught Sergio Marchi. I know Sergio Marchi. And let me tell you one thing. If he can become an MP, anybody. So I said to myself, there's another bush stone in the head. True story. So I know the optics don't look good for people to consider when our politics has gone slightly south. It's not an opportune moment to consider perhaps a public life career. But you know what? AI, which has huge, enormous potential, and I spoke to Erasmo's son. Erasmo is a dear high school friend, and his son is in AI, which is way above my pay grade. But notwithstanding the enormous potential that AI offers to life and Canada, AI won't run a country. AI won't show you empathy. AI won't promote and safeguard our values as a country and as a people. We will always require good, committed young men and women, as well as the not so young, because we need their bold voices, we need their bold ideas. And that's why I wrote the book, because I thought about the dwindling numbers when I was teaching at Carleton University and other places. At the end of the year, I would always ask for a show of hands of how many people might consider running for public office or becoming a bureaucrat. And out of a classroom of about 25 or so students, maybe 2 or 3 hands would go up. And that was consistent right across the board. And I said to myself many times, well, what can I do modestly in a small corner of the world to try to improve that? And then the idea came about writing a book, and not writing memoirs. And for those who do, God bless them. I've read many good memoirs. But I wanted to write something that was based on your experience, which is memoirs, but to make it a how-to practical guideline for how they may enter public life. So I thought, why can't I share my lessons, some learned the hard way, and my experiences as a community activist, which is where it all started for me, or as a counselor, or as an MP, or as a minister, or as an ambassador. What does it mean? What does it entail? What are the ups and downs? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the issues that guide campaigns? How do you canvass properly? How do you fundraise? How do you raise volunteers? How do you select staff for 2 very different offices, one in the riding and one in Ottawa, with completely different objectives? So I thought I would put pen to paper and share these experiences and share these lessons with readers in the hope that someone would have the ambition and the inspiration to perhaps seek out public life. I also wanted to demystify politics, because when I talk to people, sometimes they'll say that politics for them is a mystery. They're not sure how it works. They don't know too many people in the arena, so it's got a mystery connotation to it. And I wanted to say in the book that you don't have to be born with superior political acumen or skills. Of course, the Mandelas of the world, the Churchills of the world, the Gandhis of the world. You feel they were actually born to lead men and women, right? But my argument is most political leaders are made. They run, they sometimes fall, they learn from their fall, they get back on the horse and capture the imagination of their citizenry and their country. So politicians are not predetermined. Politicians learn their craft. You don't need to be born as an orator. That will come as long as you don't feel fear when speaking to fellow Canadians. So I wanted to bring down this mystery, and that sometimes it's all about the same old-fashioned work and hustle that gets you across the line. Whether it's a guy like Chris who's built his firm into 44 lawyers from scratch, or whether you want to run to become the mayor of Mississauga or the member of parliament from Toronto, it's old-fashioned values and work that are more predetermined as opposed to thinking that you need to be born with all sorts of special. You out of office. I said, yeah, but Mom, other than that, it's a wonderful profession. My father said, be a dentist. I'm a dentist. I said, why a dentist? Oh, they have a nice shirt and tie. They have the white thing over. They make a good dollar. I said, yeah, but Dad, it's painful for everybody who comes to the dentist to get their teeth pulled. I couldn't do that. So anyway, they couldn't believe that also my community activism, because I was so busy in the community that my marks were tanking. And for Italian immigrants, at least then, education was pretty close to the top because they barely finished grade school. And so they couldn't believe that I was giving up education like that, because for them at the time, education equaled a good life. And I couldn't tell them why I was so satisfied. And on top of that, they said, well, if you're going to work in the community, why don't you at least get paid for it? So I'm sure that when I went to bed, my parents would have a discussion about, boy, that kid's going nowhere. But I wanted to, I now lost my train of thought. No, they were in the cabinet room, and the satisfaction of seeing my parents there with tears streaming down their cheeks was a special moment for them. And they didn't tell me about how they really felt, because sometimes immigrants don't open up that much to their kids. They keep it inside. But I knew that that day, that moment, made their struggles from Italy to Argentina to Canada worth it. So there's great satisfaction in working for your constituents, working with fascinating people, passing new legislation or new regulation, spending hours in cabinet dealing with incredible issues surrounded by some incredible people. There's a huge amount of satisfaction. So never let the negatives dictate the tale. You have to also flip the coin and look to the other side, and I hope they do. Marchi-The is a public service pro. That's what I wrote in this book. Because Marchi-The was one of John Turner's key assistants while John was the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. And by the way, he's also an accomplished author. He just wrote a book that I hear is a bestseller. What's it called? The Ripple Effect?
Yes.
The Ripple Effect. So if you want to know about how to network and why it's important, you might want to buy his book for Christmas. First buy mine. If you've got enough money left over, then buy his.
Ours is cheaper.
Huh?
Ours is cheaper.
Yours is cheaper. It's probably better. The question on trade. I described, Mark, the WTO for the last 5-6 years as a stationary bicycle. The ambassadors are pedaling hard, The ambassadors are sweating. They might actually be losing a pound or two, but a stationary bicycle goes nowhere. And the WTO is quickly losing relevance. Now, is the WTO and the multilateral system dead? I predict that it's not. I hope that it's not, because Canada has invested mightily in our multilateral trade system, because we're not a superpower and we're not one of the largest countries in the world, which means we need rules and standards. We don't want the world to return to the Wild West, where in the Wild West, the big and the mighty do very, very well, thank you very much, and the other countries, as the Italians say, God help you, all right? So we've invested mightily in the WTO. It's not moving very fast, but I'm hoping it's not going to go away. And when normalcy, if it ever returns, and again, I hope it returns, I think the multilateral trade system will still be there. But the multilateral trade system, Trump has made worse. But it started its decline before he came. But the impact of Trump 1 and Trump 2 means that in all the years of the GATT and then its successor, the WTO, the locomotive for moving forward, whether you like them or not, was always the United States of America. They were the leader. They were the locomotive. They pulled many, many other countries with them, sometimes with a fight. And today, because of Donald Trump, they are no longer the locomotive. They are the caboose. And what the caboose is doing is holding back the WTO. A caboose has become a weight on the WTO with his tariffs, with his style of dealing with countries and leaders. And Canadians know a couple of things about how he treats people and leaders. And so the WTO multilateral trading system is in a precarious state. And I think we have entered that Wild West where he makes deals with the people he likes. He only cares about himself and America. It's not just America first, because we do Canadian first too. For me, Donald Trump is about America only. He doesn't give a damn about the welfare, probably of most Americans for that matter, and many other countries. So I think the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, is right, Mark, when he says our old relationship with the Americans is gone. We still will have a relationship with our neighbors. Of course we will. It won't be as big and as nice and as great as it used to be, but that old relationship is gone. And that's an important statement, because I think what he meant as well is we have to take our own levers in our own hands now. And the Europeans have to do that as well. And the Asians have to do that as well, because we're all treated the same way, it seems, except China and sometimes India, because they're bigger. But people and government are making decisions today based on the mistrust of America. They are no longer assuming that America is going to be there for them. If they are, it's a bonus. So even if we get a decent Democratic president, or a Republican for that matter, coming the next time, countries are already making decisions. And that's why Carney is out there hustling. He was in Asia a few days ago, and he made the right decision by inviting the Indian Prime Minister to the G7. He took some hell for it from his own caucus members because of the allegations around India murdering a Canadian in British Columbia. But I think it was the right thing to do, because you have to find a way to deal with large economies. We can't afford to ignore or be indifferent. We must bring justice if the Indian government is found guilty of murdering one of our own. They must pay for that. But if they pay for that, it doesn't mean that we can't sell the goods and services of Canadians to India. Same thing with China. Mark Carney now has met with the president. He had a meeting in New York with the premier, and he's reset that file as well, because the last time our two leaders met was 8 years ago. You can't do that with China. You can't be that indifferent. And when Justin Trudeau got elected in 2015, within days he got an invite from China to visit their country, which was a great signal. And he got an invite for two basic reasons. One, his father. His father is still revered in China because Pierre Trudeau was one of the first Western leaders to recognize China diplomatically. And the second reason is that during the Harper time, China was nowhere on the Canadian radar because Harper brought a real ideology to an anti-China stance. And so they invited Trudeau because they had good hope. And then we had a few difficulties, the two Michaels among others. But then I think, honestly, and speaking candidly, I think Mr. Trudeau mismanaged that file. And it's stayed dormant until now Carney has come to the prime ministership. So he's doing the right things, but his biggest challenge, Mark, with trade and investment and building big projects, which he further announced today, is big projects take time. So while you are building that big infrastructure that's going to take 4, 5, 10 years, what do you do in the meantime, right? And that's going to be very difficult. How does he get the patience of Canadians? Because constituents want something done yesterday. They're not as much interested in promises of 10, 15 years down the road. So that's a big challenge. But perhaps I went on too long, but those are my words in response to your question. I'm not going to be the judge and jury on who's competent, who's not. Not everybody who's elected is a rocket scientist. Not every lawyer is as smart as Chris. You've got different qualifications. But I think even for very qualified politicians, the bureaucrats are still powerful. Because as you said, they've been there. They have seen ministers coming and going. They have the knowledge. And that's why Jean Chrétien, in the very first cabinet meeting, which was held in the afternoon of our swearing in 1993, he had 5 or 6 key points that he wanted to tell his new cabinet. These are the rules of the road for our government. And one of them was collaborate and work closely with your bureaucrats. Don't isolate them. Don't run interference the way I think things were working with Mulroney's ministers, very powerful chiefs of staff. He said they are experts and they want you to succeed. They want you to be strong because a strong, successful minister means a strong, successful deputy minister and department. No department wants a weak minister, not one of them. So they're not insecure. They don't want a weak minister. They want a minister who can drive the department in one's government. So he said, based on his experience of many cabinet portfolios with Mr. Trudeau, that he relied heavily on his bureaucrats, that they kept him out of trouble. And because Jean was very engaging with them, they loved working for him.
Sure.
So it made for a good collaboration. And Jean was absolutely correct, because after having served in cabinet, if you don't work well with bureaucrats, or if you slight them, or if you disrespect them, they'll tie you up in knots. If you treat them as professionals, they become your partner. And so I say that to the odd politician who calls me for advice. Use your bureaucrats as partners. Don't alienate them. Don't only count on your political staff. We need them. And so the collaboration, and I talk about that in that chapter, the collaboration between the elected politician and the government bureaucrats is key. And if that function is off, or if there's a dysfunctionality between the two, you suffer on the policy front. If that's working, then you got a good shot at it.
ਇਹ ਬੜੇ ਐਕਟਿਵ ਸੀ ਜੀ। ਇਹ 6-7 ਬੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੈਟ ਪੈਕ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਮਲੋਨੀ ਦੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਵੱਧ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਸਨ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਲੀਡਰ ਜੌਨ ਟਰਨਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਫਿਰ ਕ੍ਰੇਚਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਬਣੇ। ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ 1993 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਕ੍ਰੇਚਨ ਬਣੇ ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਅਹਿਮ ਪੋਰਟਫੋਲੀਓ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਟਰੇਡ ਵੀ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਰੈਵਨਿਊ ਵੀ, ਕਈ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰੀਆਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ, ਬੜਾ ਲੰਬਾ ਚੌੜਾ ਤਜਰਬਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ WTO ਤੇ ਵਰਲਡ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਉੱਤੇ ਅੰਬੈਸਡਰ ਕ੍ਰੇਚਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਭੇਜ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਸਵਿਟਜ਼ਰਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਫਿਰ ਚੇਅਰਮੈਨ ਬਣੇ ਜੀ 1 ਸਾਲ, ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਆਟਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਪਰਸੂਇੰਗ ਏ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਲਾਈਫ, ਹਾਊ ਟੂ ਸਕਸੀਡ ਇਨ ਦਾ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਅਰੀਨਾ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹਿਤ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਉਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਦੇਖੋ, ਸਰਜੀਓ ਮਾਰਕੀ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਬੋਰਨ ਟੂ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ। ਇਹਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਸਨ ਇਹ ਛੋਟੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਸਨ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਨਦਰਨ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਰੋਟੀ ਰੋਜ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਭਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਅਰਜਨਟਾਈਨਾ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ। ਅਰਜਨਟਾਈਨਾ, ਉੱਥੇ ਸਰਜੀਓ ਮਾਰਕੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਦਾ ਜਨਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ 1956 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਅਤੇ 1-2 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਮੂਵ ਕਰ ਗਏ ਜੀ, ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਫਿਰ ਇਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੁੱਢਲੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਾਰੀ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲ ਦੀ ਅਤੇ ਯਾਰਕ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਕੀਤੀ। ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਆਟਵੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਰਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਜੋਬ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਮਰ ਜੋਬ ਬੱਚੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੋਬ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਸੀ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਫਿਰ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਵਾਲਵ ਨੇ। ਬੜਾ ਡਾਊਨ ਟੂ ਅਰਥ ਆਦਮੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਬੜਾ ਸੋਬਰ ਟਾਈਪ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਬੜੀ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਕਲੈਰਿਟੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਦੇ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਕਿਸ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਚੰਗੀ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਕੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੂੰ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੰਬਰ 1 ਕੰਟਰੀ ਬਣਾਏ ਜਾਣ ਲਈ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਜ਼ਿਹਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ ਜੀ।